everyone, here's the Rocky View Literacy and Numeracy team gathered together to talk to you today about pre-assessment. Hopefully you've taken the last few days or week to take time to connect with your students, build relationship with them, and now it's time to get to know who they are as learners. So this is why we are going to talk to you about pre-assessment. So before we get on the way, let's introduce each other. So on the literacy team, I'm Julie Vaillancourt.
I'm Susan Noble.
Over on the numeracy team, I'm Jason Ness.
And I'm Stacy Connolly. So let's get started on pre-assessment. So at the beginning of a new school year, when we start a new topic, it's important to spend some time working out where our students are at. That means looking into what prior learning, skills, and essential understandings are necessary to move students forward with the new learning. Pre-assessment is an essential piece of the learning design process across literacy and numeracy and within all disciplines. Pre-assessment helps us to design intentional student-centered learning experiences for our class.
Pre-assessment tasks can be used to gather formative feedback from our learners in terms of their knowledge, understanding, skills, strengths, and areas for further development. Pre-assessment tasks can be used to inform instructional practice with an eye toward inclusive and strength-based practices. It is unfair to assume that all students need the same supports and levels of support across the board. By taking time to pre-assess our students, we get to know them in deep and meaningful ways and can use this data to make impactful instructional decisions.
So let's get into a little bit of the how of pre-assessment, and we'll start with where literacy and numeracy overlap a little bit, what's common between us. And it's worth mentioning before we get too deep into that we're not talking about that beginning of the year time when you're really just getting to know your kids as people. So some of those meet and greet activities that you might do right at the beginning of the year. It's also not part of the classroom review. If you're familiar with that terminology, understanding what your various students' strengths are, where you might need to differentiate your instruction for your students' diverse needs. That would be a separate part of your beginning of your year activities. And it's also worth mentioning that we're not coming at this thinking about a test. This isn't necessarily quantitative information. We don't want to increase the anxiety that kids have at the beginning of the year by throwing tests at them from the previous grades learning.
Right, Jason, it's not about a test. Really what we're looking at is using the pre-assessment as a formative assessment, where you're trying to collect that qualitative data that will inform your teaching. Really, we're talking about open-ended task that provides you with a rich opportunity to observe your students, have conversation with them, and also collect that product that's going to be used to guide your instruction.
We are looking for content knowledge, skills, and understanding of concepts, but we also want to observe how comfortable students are with the program of studies and the learner competencies. When we dig deep into student understanding, we are not just looking to see if they have achieved the previous grade level's outcomes. We're also seeing the depth of their understanding along a continuum of learning.
It's less about considering how we can fill gaps for students and more looking how we can build bridges for them in their understanding. It's about identifying where we can focus our instruction and our energies in helping to anticipate where students will need support and where we can dig in and get more information from them. There'll be more time in the future for formative assessments to gather this more specific data for your learners.
Right, exactly. So those were some of the things that literacy and numeracy have in common. Let's talk a little bit about where each of our disciplines becomes a little bit more unique. So in numeracy, we're looking to do pre-assessments on an ongoing way throughout the course of the year as we come into each big idea in mathematics. So you might do a small amount of pre-assessment as you're beginning, say, with place value and magnitude, and then later on when you get into additive thinking, you might do some more pre-assessment. So we're chopping it up and doing it a little more piecemeal throughout the year.
Now in literacy, we're doing some holistics activity at the beginning of the year and continually building on those activities during the year. So really your pre-assessment that you're doing now is just going to feed into ongoing formative assessment, again, to guide your instruction during the year.
In numeracy, we're looking for students' strengths, areas of challenge, and the depth of their understanding within the big mathematical idea we will be exploring. In math pre-assessment of a new concept, it could be a number talk, an engaging problem, a math game, a reasoning task, basically anything that gets our students making their thinking visible.
In literacy, we're looking for a sense of strengths and challenges that students have in terms of how they take up reading and writing. We see literacy as similar to a sound equalizer or a mixing board, and that every child is their own mixing board. Trying to get a sense of where their different sliders are for things like decoding, comprehension, their oral expression in their reading. And some students will exhibit strengths in certain areas, whereas others may need more focus and support in those same areas, but every child's board will look different.
Circling back on what Stacy said earlier, in numeracy, we're trying to find very open-ended tasks, ones with high ceiling, low floor, where there's many different answers and ways of approaching and arriving at those answers. So these tasks, they may also serve as starting points for your instruction as you're going to go forward. And these are tasks that you want to make readily observable. You want to provide rich opportunities for conversation so that there's a lot of information and data for you to gather as the students are taking up these tasks.
Literacy, those pre-assessment is really for you, a way for you to find out who your students are as readers and writers. So for reading, for example, one task could be to ask your students to go choose a book of their liking. And then you as a teacher, you listen to them and you pay particular attention to their decoding skills, but also you observe their reading behaviors. Then after they're done reading, you're going to ask a few comprehension questions to see what's their comprehension of the text that they've read. Now, make sure to take an opportunity to do a quick reading interview. And this is a good way for you to find out what kind of books they like reading. Do they have lots of books at home? When do they like to read? Mainly when they're at the house or in the school. Where is their favorite reading place in their house? And you can do a very similar task with writing. You give them a writing prompts, ask students to write, and then you as a teacher, you would look at their writing sample and just put lots of feedback that you're seeing, some strengths and area of needs that they may have, but make sure to share that feedback with your students. And then again, do a writing interview, trying to find out, do they like to read? What kind of writing do they prefer? Just to give you a sense of who they are as readers and writers. But make sure to remember that these pre-assessments are not meant to take a lot of time. This should be quick and easy and just a way for you to get to know your learners.
From there, literacy and numeracy find common ground again. We both are looking to dig deeper into student capabilities with more targeted tasks, but this starts to move us into the realm of assessment rather than pre-assessment. Pre-assessment isn't excessively comprehensive.
That's right, Stace. The more opportunities that students have to show and share what they're able to do, the more opportunities teachers will have to gather data and tailor their instruction to meet the needs of those students.
So that's it. That's the lowdown on pre-assessment as it lives in numeracy and literacy. So thank you so much for joining us and watching this video. Be aware that we're here to support you as you go through this process. We're going to be continuing to support you through professional learning on pre-assessment, but also offering more content and support around assessment. So that can be in schools, meeting with you at the elbow. We'll be continuing to do Zoom chats, putting information and videos out on our channels. So please keep an eye on the PL calendar for us and follow us on Twitter, literacy at #RVSLit and numeracy at #RVSNumeracy for all of these things. At the end of this video, you'll see a slide with our contact information. Shoot us an email, come visit our websites. There's lots more resources available. And please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to support you. Bye.